you ever gotten a text from someone you have not heard from this person for the longest time? And out of the blue, you get this text, and they don't even ask how you've been doing. They don't even warm you up with any banter. They don't even ask to see what life has been. Nothing. It's just straight to their question. And have you ever gotten a text where someone texts you a question that's like so out of the blue and almost like accusatory? And you're like, what on earth is happening? Dennis, has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Well, it drives me crazy. I don't know about you.
Yes.
Well, good that it's happened to you, because in this week's episode...
I probably have sent a few of those too.
Oh, we all have.
Yeah.
We all have. But in this week's episode, we are going to go over some basics of communicating. Some basics. You know why the basics are good?
Because they're
help,
basic.
Because they're basic. And we all need the basics at time, and they help build a strong foundation for how we communicate. Because we're not always going to get it right. But if we can at least keep these basics ahead of us, in front of us, then our communication will be that much healthier.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. So, would you rather get a phone call, get a text message, get an email? Yeah, those three. That's it.
Ooh, those three.
Like if somebody wants to, you haven't heard from somebody in a while, would you, or even if you have, but like, would you rather get a text, an email, or a phone call?
I think for me, oh man, maybe they're all tied. They could be all tied. Because I think a text would probably edge out a call.
And probably have a better chance of actually getting the text.
Yeah. For some reason, people don't call anymore.
No.
And so we do that.
So most of our communication is through either text or email.
Text or email.
I mean, we'll call if we have crazy things.
Well, welcome to this week's podcast episode for Speak with People. My name is Jason Raitz. I'm joined this week by my co-host,
Dennis Poulet.
And we are talking about the basics of communicating, because every single human on the planet needs to know and understand some basics. Because honestly, your life, your leadership, your communication could improve drastically, significantly if you just get some of these basics right. There are people, after being a pastor for so long and sitting face to face and hearing so many stories, there are so many people that I had to just walk through some basics of communicating with, because they wondered things like, why does no one listen to me? Why don't I have any friends? Why is my message not getting across? All those kind of things. And so some of it goes back to the basics. And I'm a basics kind of guy. Like I don't need super gigantic, complex. Give me the basics. Let me get those right, and I'll move on.
Yeah, and most of the time nowadays, we're either we're communicating through text, we're communicating through email, and if we're lucky, we're face-to-face at a coffee shop or whatever. So those are the three things we want to talk about today.
Those are the three. And then after that, though, like people are still calling each other, obviously.
Yeah, on the phone. We're DMing each other. FaceTime.
And some of us send handwritten cards in the mail.
What's that? No, I'm just kidding.
See, but the problem with my handwritten cards is if you get one from me, you may not be able to read it because it's just so difficult to read my handwriting.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Are you a fountain pen guy?
I don't know. Whatever this kind of pen is.
No.
This is my favorite pen.
You're a ugly pen guy.
That's it. Well, hey, before we hop into this week's material, just want to thank our sponsor, Banter. Banter, if you have followed Ted Lasso at all, you know what Banter is. If you don't follow Ted Lasso, you don't know it all. So only a quarter of our podcast audience just got a chuckle. But for real, I got big news about a sponsor moving forward.
Banter?
Not Banter.
Another one-word sponsor?
It is. Looks like I'm going to sign on with Logos Bible Software. Logos. Is it Logos?
Logos? I don't know.
It's one of the two. And so Logos Bible Software is this amazing program that has so much more than just the Bible. I mean, it has incredible resources and commentaries and books and videos. And I mean, this is like a platform to help you grow spiritually. And so I'm going to be talking about this on future episodes because if you use this, it will help out the Speak with People podcast, and it will help out you in your growth in your relationship with Jesus. So very excited about that.
Cool deal.
So let's jump into the basics. Okay, let's talk about some texting basics. Dennis, let's just play a game. Do you remember what your first experience was like sending a text message?
No.
I do.
No, I do not remember.
I do. Dearborn Heights, Michigan. It must have been like the early 2000s. Oh, yeah, I think so. And Tracy and I went to a phone store and we got the two little like block Nokias. Or is it Nokia?
Whatever.
One of the two. And I can remember the only things I did on that phone is I called people, I played Snake, and I could send like a couple letter texts. And that was...
But you had to press the numbers 3 times, like A, B,
Yes.
D, C, E. Yeah, you had, I don't know my alphabet. But you had to do like 3 punches for one.
It was so
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah.
It was so challenging. And now, I mean, text messages, you can speak into the phone and Siri will actually send it. I try not to because Siri does not like me, misspells all my words, says horrible things. Like, for instance...
Is that why you sent me that text the other day?
Maybe. For instance, I sent my daughter a text once that said, "You look so horrible today." And what I meant to say was something along the lines of like, "Thanks for the hug," or "You look huggable," or something like that. I don't even know what I said, but it took the word hug and huggable to horrible. And my daughter texted me back and was like, What did you just say? And I was like, that was it.
Never mind. I'm sorry.
That was it. But let's talk about some texting basics because this is one of the primary ways we communicate, and this is one of the primary ways it could trip you up in your communication with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your boss, your neighbors. And so let's just kind of jump right in. True or false, Dennis? Emojis are your friend when it comes to communicating over text
See,
message.
I think people go positive and negative with emojis. Sometimes people don't like emojis. But I always try to add an emoji because you cannot communicate tone just through a text.
That's true. Tone is very important.
And I'm a very sarcastic guy. I don't know if you knew that about me, but I'm pretty sarcastic.
Yes.
And so, like, if I don't add a little smiley face, people probably just think that I'm being
jerk.
a big jerk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
me, at least, I think that emojis are my
Tone
friend.
is so incredibly important. I played the trumpet for years. Tone and pitch is so important.
Yeah.
And especially as we sit face to face, we can read each other's body language. But as it comes across over the phone, I can't even tell you how many situations I've been in where I've led staff members who have gotten a text from someone and they came to me going, "How do I interpret this? What do I do? What do I say?" And so I think emojis are like, do you know when you go to the mall and there's the Mrs. Fields cookie store and there's the chocolate chip cookies with the icing on them? I mean, it's like so much goodness in one. The icing is, the emojis are like the icing on the chocolate chip cookie.
Okay.
I mean, why not?
I guess they could turn a bad cookie good. Icing could turn a bad.
But I guess the emojis could be bad emojis.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I think somehow communicating, your actual emotion, if it's a smiley face or if it's an emoji or whatever, if you're sad about something, maybe you probably should try to communicate that in a text.
Because you really can divert so much of the other person's energy. Because like we've talked about in this podcast before, words can dismantle someone, or lack of understanding about words can dismantle someone. And they could spend so much time trying to figure out what was their intent. What are they trying to say? What did you really just say? And they're just not clear.
And have you ever read a text message based on how you're doing that day?
Right.
So like you think I'm upset, I'm mad about something else. It has nothing to do with the person that's sending me the text message.
Right.
But I'm upset about something else, and I read this, and I'm like, can you believe that this person sent me this, blah, blah, blah? And my wife's like, what do you mean? It says, like, happy birthday. It's like it's nothing to do with what's
Exactly.
going on in my life, but it is definitely,
Exactly.
emotion.
It's so important. I think one of the things to absolutely remember every time you pick up your phone and you're about to send a text, like take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and go, okay, how can I be clear in what I'm about to communicate? How can I be clear in what I'm about to communicate? And so maybe another thought is, if you haven't spoken to someone in a while, like just you haven't spoken to someone in a while. Like the other day, I get a text from someone out of the blue. And no catch up, no how you doing? We haven't talked it forever. But it was like just like a sharp text right out of the middle of nowhere. Like, man, what that does is it puts the receiver up against the wall right away. And so their back's up against the wall. Now emotions are getting involved. Now people are getting agitated. They're trying to figure out, what do I say?
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like in our culture too, this is something I learned from Mexican culture, was I think Americans in general, most of us are a very direct and to the point kind of people. And my Mexican friends always were not that way. They were always, hey, the person was more important than the business at hand.
Yep.
And so it was always, hey, let me talk to you. Let me see how you're doing. Let me connect with you as a person. And now let's tackle the issue.
Bam.
But a lot of times what we do is, and I do it, is I want to tackle the issue rather than catching up. And so there isn't any banter. There's just like, hey, did you see that email? We got to talk about that.
Yep.
Rather than, hey, how's your day going? Are you okay? And I think just taking that pause and then asking how the person's doing, that's going to help with any of those other texts that you write that are like maybe a little short. You know?
Absolutely.
Like we gotta get to this business or whatever. Especially if you're like a boss or whatever, it's okay to like, hey, hope you're having a great day. I saw this email.
Yep.
Let's tackle this.
Absolutely. And I know not everyone's like me. You know, I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, which 4s are individualists and they're creative and they're romantic and they're emotional and they're up and down. And more than anything, 4s are feelers. And so I can walk into the room and I can just sense what's happening with everybody. You know, I can read a text and like sense it. I know that's not for everybody, but it's just such a great way of life if you remember there is a person on the other end of the phone. And so care for them. It doesn't have to be like a long diatribe of, you know.
I think even reading your text, you got to do that too.
Yes.
Like maybe you did get a short email and there was no, hey, how you doing or whatever. But then you have to flip that switch in your brain and you have to think, okay, this person might be going through this or this or this. And I know that person and they probably didn't mean it the way that I took it.
Yep. And I think another really great principle to remember is never assume everything's the worst and negative. Never assume. Because what happens is when you assume, you know what happens.
You assume.
We'll just leave it at that. But you spend so much time. You take so much time going, well, did they mean it this way? Did they mean it? No, stop the assumptions. Just kind of go right into it. Okay. Text messaging, so big. Some basics of that. Here are a couple just fun kind of reminders when you're texting. Send texts for big life moments. I mean, if the Holy Spirit brings someone to your mind that you haven't talked with for a while, don't just assume that they know how you feel. Send them the text. Hey, I was thinking about you today. I prayed for you. Hey, I was thinking about you. God brought you to my heart. How are you doing? This happened just the other night. Another friend texted me, hey, have you heard from this friend in a while? I said, well, actually, I just did. One of their family members was sick. And I was like, it was like a pure window into the Holy Spirit working. Because for whatever reason, the Holy Spirit put that person on that person's heart. And then they texted me and then texted them. Anyways, it's just this thing. So send some big life moments. Send encouraging texts. If you read something positive on Facebook, send them a text and say, hey, congratulations on that. Or if you're on LinkedIn and you see that they got a job promotion or something's happening in their life, send a text. It's just powerful.
Yep.
So
what else?
Those are some huge. Okay, that's texting. Let's talk about sitting across the table having coffee. What are some basics of communication? Again, this is basics. Like this is just basics. In this podcast, in months and months to come, we're going to dive into, the advanced, the master degree level of all this. But this is like,
fundamentals.
The fundamentals.
The layups.
It all goes back to the fundamentals.
But they're easy. These are the easiest things to do that I mess up with.
Here's the first one. And this is a huge one. And I messed up with this for a long time. The first one is this. If you can. Now, maybe you can't because it's Florida and the heat is crazy and it will ruin your iPhone. But if you live somewhere where the heat doesn't desperately destroy while left. So, leave your phone in the car.
I can't do it.
How does that hit you, Dennis?
I just can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
It's attached to you, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that, and normally we have like kids. So the kids, in case there's an emergency or whatever. But
It's a good reason.
the concept is there.
The concept. Okay, so if you can't leave it in the car, put it next to you.
I just usually put it in my pocket and don't take it out.
Yes.
But yeah. Or you put it on the table and leave it upside down and
Yes. Face down so you can't see
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more distracting as you're sitting with someone having coffee when they're continually turning their phone over, or they're always lifting up their wrist, looking at it, and then hitting it.
Yeah. Which I did just get a phone call, but
I don't have an Apple Watch. I've been dreaming of one for a while, and I'm afraid if I get an Apple Watch, I'll join that club, and I'll be like,
yeah,
what's going on? What's happening?
I'm so popular. I get my phone calls on my watch.
Like literally, and I mess up with communication because I have the attention span of a gnat. So this is for all of us. But I'm more in tune to it. I've had conversations with people where they're legitimately trying to ask my advice on something or pour out their heart, and then they're like right in mid, and then they're like,
yeah.
And then they're back to it.
So how does it make you feel whenever someone's phone rings while you're sitting with them and they look at it and they say, I got to take this? How does that make you feel like as a person? Because I feel like we always lie in this situation.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then you sit there and what do you do?
Right. You can check your phone.
You check your phone.
You check your phone, see how your likes are. Yeah, for me, like, I just think
it must be so important because
it must be. And okay, maybe I'm going to get in trouble here, but for a lot of people over the years, if I'm meeting with another guy and if it's their wife calling, they'll be like, oh, I got to answer right now. I got to answer right now. But now, sometimes I'll just be honest. Sometimes though, that will irk me more than anything else, because I'm like, really, your wife can't ask you like, and okay, man, I'm really.
Unless she texts like SOS.
We're at the hospital.
Timmy fell in the well.
Absolutely.
Lassie just told me.
Right. But if it's like hey, I got to get over here to this.
I'm at the grocery store. What do you need?
Yeah. Like most families share a family calendar. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's just either here or there. But
that is not a fundamental.
That is not a fundamental.
You can take that or leave it.
Another big giant fundamental though is your body language and how you sit. So if you're seated the entire time with your arm crossed, leaning back, it really does convey something. Either it conveys, "Ooh, my back is hurting and I need to lean back," or a lot of times the crossed arm position is like more of a position of like, yeah, I'm trying to like brace myself for what's next. So I learned from a coach years ago, especially if I'm having a hard conversation with somebody. If you're sitting across the table, sit with your hands on your lap, and you're actually your palms open, as a way to kind of tell yourself, yes, I'm not meditating under the table, but as a way of like, hey, I'm open to what this person's saying, I'm listening to it, and we'll have to do a whole
body language.
We'll have to do a whole episode on body language, a whole episode on just that, how to deliver and how to receive that hard conversation, that tough conversation, but. Your body language is so incredibly important. If you're slouched and you're leaning over, if you're not looking at the other person, now you don't want to stare at them to an obnoxious rate to where, but you want to have good eye contact. You want to be able to listening. Okay, so leave your phone if you can, or at least, put it next to you. Turn off the notifications if you can. Here's kind of a giant one. It's the 80-20 rule, like when you're meeting with someone. The 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I remember the first time we met.
Oh wow! Yes. It was like a year and a half ago.
It was almost about a year ago. I think.
Wow.
Only a year.
Wow. Okay.
It's crazy. But we met at the Panera Bread company, ate some lunch. It was delicious. Blah blah blah. But I remember like thinking, even during that conversation, like, man, I'm telling this guy too much. Like, I am telling him way too much for a guy that I just met. And I think it's because you were practicing that. You were practicing the 80-20.
Yeah.
Tell him what the 80-20
And I've been in the exact opposite too, where I'm like, oh, wow, they know the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule, and it's perfect in one-on-one conversations. Definitely great if you're a small group leader leading, or if you're a manager leading a team, is, hey, I'm going to talk 20% of the time as the one, but I'm going to use that 20% to ask questions and to really listen, and then just let them talk the other 80% of the time.
Yeah, and I think asking questions is a huge thing. Like we were at that event yesterday, we were at a networking thing, and we're in a room of a bunch of people that we don't know. And like the only way to actually do anything in those kinds of events is to ask questions.
Yep.
So what do you do? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. How long have you been here?
Yep.
Oh, you just moved. If somebody says we just moved here, it's really easy to say, where'd you come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
those questions are so important, and people will leave going, oh, wow. That person really cared that they took the time to do that. And the next step, like the 201 level part of that step, is to then remember what they said. And so if you're like me and my contacts and my notes, I'll like try to immediately after that conversation, I'll just put a couple notes on, met with Dennis, 9-1, we talked about this, just so I can remember. I
wonder what my notes I'm going to read or not.
The last one is this, and I'll call this the Terry Prisk rule. Terry Prisk has been a mentor of mine. He was a guest professor in one of my communication classes, and he gave me an A, probably one of the only A's I got in college. It was for delivering a speech. And Terry was a professional speaker for years. He's been a pastor for years. And so Terry's an incredible communicator. But every time I have a phone call with him, if I'm sitting down face to face or if I get off the phone, by the end of the phone call, he'll always ask me, okay, what did you hear me say? What are you leaving this conversation remembering? Like, do you have any? And at first, I'll be honest, sorry, Terry, it drove me bananas because I'm like, we just talked about a lot. But it's really important because communication is just so valuable. And this is a basic. Like if I can then sum up to the person, hey, just as a reminder, I'm going to get you this, you're going to get me that, we're on the same page. That's just absolutely key. Oh my goodness, there are so many other basics that we could go over, but I'm telling you, podcast listeners, dare I say friends,
Of course.
I'm doing it. You're my friends. You're my friends. These basics will help you. These basics will elevate the importance of healthy communication in your life. And these basics really will change the trajectory of your relationships, whether it's with your spouse, your kids, whether it's with other people you work with, whether it's with your boss, whoever it is. Learn these basics. Hey, before we let you leave, I just want to make sure that you know of a couple things that are coming up. We're so terribly excited that the speaker conference website is live. Registrations are going. Just so you remember, there is a friends and family rate of $299 till October 23rd. Friends and family rate. Then it goes to like the adjusted rate of like, okay, probably what we really should be charging. But we wanted to say, hey, if you've been a friend and family for a long time, and this is an opportunity, I just get giddy when I think about it. Like this conference is hosted at the Sheraton Sand Key on Clearwater Beach in Florida in March 21 to 23. Like if you want to, say you live in, Timbuktu, Minnesota, no offense to Minnesotans, but you're way up there and it's, March and you're like, I just need to go somewhere warm. Sign up for this conference because you will be able to get up in the mornings, go for a walk on the beach. You'll be able to walk outside. You'll be able to watch sunsets. It's right on the ocean. But make sure you go to thespeakerconference.com. Check out our lineup of speakers. I'm just blown away by the lineup that we have. We're going to be teaching through the speaking pathway, the Speak with People speaking pathway. There's going to be so many fun experiences, live music, the welcome reception. Oh my goodness, there's just so much information.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Go to the website, sign up, register for that friends and family rate, and then get your hotel rooms because they're going to go quick and it's going to be a great time and we can't wait to see you.
And there's no room on Jason's floor.
There's no room on my floor. It's all reserved because it's going to be one big giant party. Well, hey friends, thank you for tuning in for this week's podcast. It just means the world when you download, when you subscribe, when you listen. And if you can head to Apple or Spotify or Google, wherever you do this, and leave a review, it would be absolutely huge. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the basics of communication. Hope that these were helpful and that you employ them in your relationships, and hopefully your relationships will become more healthy.
We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.